Hello, Living of Family. We are in Genesis chapter 5. Today's passage is the whole chapter of Genesis 5. So I'm not going to read all the verses, but let me read first three verses. This is a written account of Adam's family line. When God created mankind, he made them in the likeness of God. He created them male and female and blessed them. And he named them mankind when they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and he named him Seth. So today's passage, at a first glance, it looks like very tedious chapter because it's continuation of genealogy. But actually, this verses 3 and 4 became enlightenment verses for me to understand what the image of God means. What it means that man is created as an image of God. So in verse 1, it says, when God created mankind, he made them in the likeness of God. He created them male and female. Though both men and women are created as God's image. Many scholars, theologians explain it in many different ways. However, when I got to read verse 3, when Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image. He named him Seth. So from this passage, in biblical perspective, likeness, God's likeness, image of God means that we all have sonship of God. We are created as sons and daughters of the King of the universe. That's the privilege the Genesis is portrayed about humankind. What a blessing. So, and then I could understand why God bestowed us that privilege of freedom to name all the animals, rule over all the earth. He sees us as princess and prince of the King of the universe. And when it comes to the knowledge of fruit of good and evil, God put it there in the garden to set the limitation, boundary for us. Even though we are sons and daughters of God, we're not God. And sadly enough, we all looked at the passages before chapter 5. Men and women, first men and women ate the fruit and they became the kings of their own life. And that was the beginning of the tragedy. But I want to going back to the very original design of God, that we are created as sons and daughters of God. What does it mean practically to us? I think we have a privilege to live a life according to God's will. God's business is my business. And now, as our King Jesus came and conquered death and redeemed us from death and our sin, now we are participating His mission together to bring God's kingdom to the earth. So that's our privilege. And one more thing I noticed here in these verses is their life, either 300 years, 500 years, 600 years, it's briefly mentioned. It doesn't seem to have a great impact in God's kingdom. They lived certain amount of years and they became father of someone and then they died. I think this describes our human limitation as a finite being and the sad reality of sin and death, but at the same time, it provides hope that our life could have legacy that will impact, that will continue the coming of God's kingdom. I think that's the message of the entire chapter 5 because the genealogy leads up to the life of Noah, and in verse 29, Lamech named him Noah and said, "He will comfort us in the labor and the painful toil of our hand caused by the ground of the Lord has cursed." After Noah was born, Lamech lived 595 years and had other sons and daughters. And then he died. Even though his life is just marked with the length of his life and then his sons and daughters, but it still gives us hope. Our legacy could one day lead up to those who bring peace and comfort to the earth, just Noah did. And Noah is actually a great picture of our coming King, Prince of Peace, Jesus Christ. And all the righteous life of God's people ultimately leads to the coming of Jesus Christ, and that changed the human history and everything. And our life today will eventually lead to the coming of our King, returning of King Jesus. So even if my life looks small, sometimes it doesn't have any impact, let's live our life faithfully. Maybe my life will be marked as 80 years of my life, and then I became the father of Chanyo and Amy and died. And it will continue to lead up to another generation of faithful people of God. And then eventually, as we walk by faith, we will see the returning of King Jesus. I think that hope and that privilege of living a life as a king's son and daughter is my takeaway for today. What's your challenge for today? I hope this passage will guide us and challenge us today's life. Thank you.